I have a follow-up question going back to transit-oriented development. In my neighborhood, which is kind of between Green Lake and Greenwood, so we have bus rapid transit, and there's even a process led by the mayor's office where we came in and we looked at the urban design and went through this neighborhood community design process, and we talked about we want to potentially change the zoning. We have single-family residential, and what happened in this particular situation is the neighbors came together and said, and this is literally half a block away from where one of the major stations would be, and they said, we don't want to rezone, we're completely against it.
Yeah.
And so how do you think you might be able to take a community process like that and come out with something that is responsible?
Yeah. When you're talking about changing zoning in neighborhoods, it's a very sensitive issue. As you well know. There's the one issue that I think is just as sensitive is bringing corporate involvement into parks. That I would wager that the types of meetings that you have when you're talking about bringing corporate sponsorships into public parks there's a similar level of tension in the room as you have when you're talking about rezoning of single family neighborhoods. I think there's rightly some concern that we're going to become more dense and we're going to do it flippantly without really thinking through what our neighborhoods are going to feel like. And I think we need to make sure that we're going to mow down every tree in town, and I think we need to take that seriously and go into this process and go into a community process very thoughtfully, so that we are alleviating and kind of quelling people's concerns. And I think it can be done. Seattle does a poor job of showing what good density, what good compact walkable communities look like. We do a terrible job of that. We use the D word, we say density, and then we don't actually show people what it looks like and how great it is, and how it's being done well in many different neighborhoods. I think we need to go back to the beginning and really start talking about examples of what this looks like. And also talk about, if we don't build around our transit stations, we're making a decision. We're making a decision that our city will be unaffordable for people like us and for our children. And that's a decision that we make together. And every time we're voting down these kind of transit-oriented development, building around our transit stations, building around our urban centers, that's the decision we're making. And we need to be very clear about that. And I don't think we have been. I also don't think we've been clear on the outset of projects of saying, great, we are passing a parks levy. We're passing a transit, property tax for transit. We're passing this, we're passing that. Part of the deal is that density comes with it. We give everything away and then try and slip in density at the back end, or slip in more residences at the back end. And people get pissed off about that because we weren't up front. We need to be up front and say, as a community together, we're figuring out how to keep our community livable, how to make progressive, urban, livable neighborhoods. And I think that goes with articulating all the benefits on the front end before we give everything away. And we have some great opportunities. I worked in the neighborhood planning process, I worked on 4 neighborhood plans in the 90s. The Wallingford, East Lake, Denny Triangle, and Central Area neighborhood plans. And we kind of talked about density, we kind of talked about building more urban neighborhoods, but we didn't really. It was more a wish list. Going through that process, were any of you guys involved in that process in the 90s? It was more a wish list where folks came together to decide what they wanted. And I think we have another revamping of the neighborhood plans coming up. And I think we need to do a better job as a city and as a community of getting folks involved that aren't just asking we're not just asking what people want, but kind of how their communities are going to change to be able to take on growth.
What would you say your big vision for Seattle is, or the legacy impact that you would make as a city council member?
I think there's a couple things. I think that building strong urban neighborhoods that families want to live in and can live in affordably is a legacy that I want to leave to this city. I grew up here, my family's from here several generations back, and I've lived in almost every neighborhood or worked in almost every neighborhood in Seattle now. And I think making sure we're building smart, compact, walkable neighborhoods is really important to me. I think that has the infrastructure, and when I say livable neighborhoods, that means it has to have the infrastructure to make it livable for families. It needs to have the good schools, it needs to have the transit, it needs to have the parks and the trees and cool rain gardens, street-lined rain gardens. I mean, everything that goes with making a livable community. I think the second legacy that, as long as I, a city council 4 years, you get 2 legacies, maybe. I think making sure we have done a poor job when it comes to building transit and transportation infrastructure in our city. We've done a poor job also of maintaining our energy infrastructure. We are we're far behind, and we're going to have to catch up, particularly with the growth coming our way. And it's an exciting time right now because there's so much happening on the energy front. There's so much happening when it comes to infrastructure improvements with smart grid technology and the potential around smart grid technology, the potential around renewable energy projects and in incubating new renewable energy projects and ideas, and then keeping them here, and the potential economy and jobs that it can create here in Seattle. I think there's some really exciting things happening. If we do this well, there's some exciting things happening on the energy infrastructure front. There are parts of the country that are pulling out in front of us and could lap us on that front. I mean, Palm Desert, my father lives in Palm Desert half the year now. Palm Desert now gives grants for solar panels. So you can put a solar panel on your house, get a grant from the city to pay for it, and you pay it back through your property taxes over the length of your mortgage. The fact that Palm Desert got there before City of Seattle got there, granted they have more sun, but to me is a sign that we're starting to kind of rest on our laurels and fall back. We have lots of opportunities, and we're not jumping on them.
So going off of that, you talked about public-private partnerships to fund kind of improvements for homeowners to weatherize their houses. What does that look like? What does that look like?
Yeah. There's right now there's a pilot project going on in the city where I think it's 5,000 homes, 4,000 or 5,000 homes are going to get the chance to do an energy audit to see how they spend energy, what they spend, where they use their energy. And then the follow-up from that, then there's going to be a revolving loan fund. And my push is to make sure, and what we're starting out with is a small revolving loan fund. My push is going to make sure that we're putting stimulus package dollars for energy efficiency and leveraging that against private money to really make that a large revolving loan fund. Diversifying how we use energy what we're doing now is a drop in the bucket. 5,000 homes is a tiny, tiny percentage of what we need to be doing. We need to exponentially blow that out and make it bigger. So right now there's this audit, they're doing it, and then homeowners will be able to make energy improvements based on what their audit finds, weatherization, add in solar panels, add in a wind turbine on their roof, and those are the types of programs. And it's a revenue generator. So if we have a loan fund, we're giving out loans, but then they're paying them back through their property taxes. So they can either pay them back and refeed the loan fund, or they can pay them back through the property taxes, and then it goes back into the general fund. So depending on what type of revenue we need, it could solve a couple different problems. And it reduces our overall dependence on dirty energy, which is cool.
Any final question? Great, thank you.
Great. Well.